Today I'd like to speak with you about a very important message about grief as it relates to the law of attention and appreciation. Just this past Saturday, March 18th, my brother, who is about to turn 85, passed away. And although, we've all been there, and I'm sure you've had your share of grief like this too. And even though we know he's free of suffering and he had a good run, a good life, grief can still be a very, very, very tricky beast, a nasty beast at times. It shows up. And yet it's so important that we allow ourselves the time. And I'm not just sharing this for you, but for myself too as a reminder. It's so important to allow the time to grieve. It's a way to maintain our emotional integrity. It's a way to maintain balance. It's a way to allow the healing to take place. And we really need to think the long game, because if we don't allow ourselves the space, the time to grieve properly, whatever it takes, then it shows up in a really nasty way, because our emotions run our physiology. Our emotions really are the catalyst to the brain releasing all the neurochemicals that affect our performance, that affect how we feel, that affect how we speak, that affect just about every aspect of our lives. I've been doing this work with the Silva Method, as if you've been following my work, for just going into 52 years. And even just in these past couple of years, I've had several students who lost their husbands prematurely within the past year, 6 months, a year, 3 months, as I remember. And it's really unfortunate how sometimes people don't allow themselves the space, and they apologize for crying. They apologize for being sad. And I've often come back and said, no, stop it. You don't need to apologize about that. Feel it. It's okay. You need to release that. And it's not quick. It's not a quick fix. It may take a year. It may take 10 years. It may take a month. I don't know. I'm not your psychologist. I'm not a grief counselor. But this much I know from 52 years of studying psychology, of working with therapists, of working with people, that in order to maintain our emotional integrity, which means so that we stay balanced and stay in harmony and live a more fulfilling life and are at our best in all that we do, it's important that we honor our feelings, our emotions when they show up. So my friends, the first part of this message is forgive yourself, allow yourself, and avoid playing the game. I should have said this, I should have done that, and why didn't I do this? Life is what it is, and it's done. Time has passed. You'll always have the memories of this person whom you're grieving in your heart. Cherish that person. Talk about that person. Journal about that person. Feel good about that person. Cry about the loss of that person in your life. We're here for a very short period of time on this planet. We're all going to die at one time or another. I don't mean that lightly. I don't mean that disrespectfully. Let's face it. However long it is that you or I will live, let's make the most of it while we're here. And that leads to the message, how grief relates to the law of attention. I'm sure you're no stranger to the law of attention, and that is whatever you give attention to, you give energy to, and whatever you give energy to will grow and multiply. You've heard people say, where attention goes, energy flows. And that's part of the message, is that if we do not grieve properly and we succumb to the distractions, whether it be TV, video games, busyness, work. I know you've heard people say work is the best therapy for grief. I agree to an extent, but you still got to be careful not to get so busy that we don't allow ourselves that time. So how does this relate to grief in a way, in a positive way, and appreciation? Recognizing that we're here for a very short period of time. It's important that we honor the people in our lives, the people whom we value, the people whom we're happier in our lives, the people who we'd feel a loss, excuse me, if they were gone. And so my question to you is, have you told them that? Have you? I learned this lesson many years ago the hard way, and I'll say this to you, that I've gotten a lot better with grieving. But I can remember when my mom passed away, my dad, even before that, one of my cousins very close to me, who I saw almost every day, died a horrible death. And I was a young teenager at the time, and at the funeral services, the men around me were hugging me and saying, "Oh, he's so tough, look at him, how he's handling this." And they were actually proud of me. They were actually patting me on the back because I wasn't crying. I wasn't showing my grief. Little did they know, the next day, I became violently ill for about a week. That energy has to go somewhere. And if we don't express it, if we don't release it, it will implode on us. And it will weaken our immune system. It will make us more vulnerable to infection, to disease. And I admit and acknowledge, and I'm hoping that this will serve you or somebody who you know who maybe needs to hear this message, is that used to be my MO, as they say. I wouldn't cry, I wouldn't show it, and I'd be comforting other people and I'd be hugging them and making the most of it. And then I would get sick. And sometimes really seriously ill for that. That's your body telling you, buddy, you gotta let go of that energy. You gotta balance it. So it's called somatizing in psychology, that our emotions will show up in our body if we don't properly manage them. So, to go back to this idea of the law of attention and appreciation, I'd like you to right now think of, I recommend highly, who's in your life who you really deeply care about, you're happy is in your life. Pick up the phone. Better yet, if you have access to them, go see them physically in person and hug them and tell them that. When I learned this lesson decades ago, I started practicing. And I have, there are four of us. I have one brother who's now passed away, and my two sisters. And I started calling up, which I do regularly anyway. We talk a lot, at least once, if not twice a week, and saying things like, "I'm happy you're in my life. I'm happy you're my sister. I love you." And I grew up in a family, believe it or not, that I never once heard anyone say, "I love you." Not my mom, not my dad, not my brothers and sisters. And I know they loved me, and I know they were there for me, and I know my brothers and sisters, and we love each other. But for whatever strange, odd reason, we grew up in a household that was a little bit, I don't know, constipated emotionally that way, not expressing openly. And through all the deep work with meditation and my studies over these years, I've learned to manage that. And I can tell you, it's made such a difference in my life. It feels so good. And it puts a smile on their face. People in tears sometimes because I say, "You don't know how that makes me feel. I've been feeling invisible, like nobody cares about me." And to hear you say that you value me, that you're happy I'm in your life, oh, thank you. Even people in business, if you have a team, if you have people who work with you, for you, it could be your boss, your supervisor, it doesn't matter. When was the last time you said, "I'm happy you're here working with me. Thank you for coming to work today. I appreciate what you do for us. I'm glad you're my colleague. I'm glad you're on my team." Oh, are you kidding me? I once shared this at a prayer breakfast meeting. Believe it or not, I was a little bit surprised. Somebody said, "Are you kidding me? What are you talking about? I pay him, I pay her." Big big money to come to work. And now I'm going to thank them for coming to work. It was so cool, guys. It was so cool. Because somebody jumped up and said, yes, yes, emphatically. And they told the story, how he complimented somebody and told them that they were so happy. Sasha wasn't even on their team. He was visiting, waiting for an appointment, and he was watching an administrative assistant who seemed to be running the show, doing this, doing that, and really handling things. And he complimented her. And then he said, I felt guilty because there's somebody on my team at home. I can't remember when I've said that to her. I went back, first thing when I got back to work, back to the office, I told her. And she broke down in tears and said, I've been having such a rough go of it lately. I've been feeling so invisible and isolated. Thank you. We all need to be valued. We all, in fact, it's one reason why people will be passive aggressive. One reason why people will get into a funk, because they don't feel valued. They don't feel appreciated. They don't feel recognized. So, my friends, the messages that I've learned myself the hard way, and maybe you know this already, great. Then share it with others. It's so important at any time, not just during the times today, for people to know that you care, that you appreciate them. And you know, you'll also be helping yourself. It feels good. And it has a healing effect on that. So grief, the law of attention, appreciation, all are kind of interrelated, aren't they? And I'm so happy to say that by learning this lesson, my brother, I spoke with him actually 2, maybe 3 weeks before his son, who is 10 years younger than me, just going to be 62 later this year, passed away. Although he did have serious complications, a brain disorder going on, it's still a big loss. And then for this, kind of compounded it. And although we speak, at least once a week, during that period of time when his son started going downhill and it was looking bad, I picked up the phone and I called him every single day just to check in, see how he was. Not even a long conversation. And I feel so glad that I did that, because it was comforting to him. And he opened up more than he ever did before in the past and shared things. And I'm not living here feeling regretful, like I should have done this and I wish I had said that. I can go to sleep at night knowing that I did my best and I showed up. And I hope you do the same too. So my friends, if this is meaningful for you, I hope it is. If it's, and I don't mean to be so serious, forgive me. Usually I'm more, like that. But I'm honoring myself. It's not a happy time for that. And if it's of value to you, or you know somebody who could value, share this with them in your own ways, or the video, however you do it. Thanks for listening. If you don't know, my name is Ken Coscia, and I happen to be the lead instructor for the Silva Method. I'm in my 52nd year, and I appreciate you. If you're following my work, if you're one of my students, thank you, because it's people like you who help to make the world just a little bit better. Let's face it, we're in this together, and it's important that we pull together. There are far more people like you, good people, people who care, people who want to make a difference, than there are the crazies, excuse me for saying it that way, but too much attention is given to the small minority of those who are, I don't want to go into judgment, you know what I mean. So remember, you are far better than you give yourself credit for.